Hey guys, it's Chris from Codetipi, and I'm excited to introduce to you the Tipi Builder. In this video, we're going to take an in-depth look at the Tipi Builder. We'll cover some of the main features and see how it works. We'll create a quick, fully functional layout to give you a sense of how easy it is to use and how enjoyable maintaining your website will become when you use it. By the end of the video, you would have learned everything you need to know to start using the Tipi Builder. So let's get started. You can use the Tipi Builder on pages, categories, tags, and even custom taxonomies. But for this video, we'll do it on a page. So let's start with a fresh one. Let's just call it home and publish it. And you may have noticed there's a Tipi Builder tab. So if we give that a click, we'll see that on the bottom right, there's a status label informing us if the Tipi Builder is active or inactive. And to launch, let's just click on this big button here. And welcome to the Tipi Builder, guys. This is your starting screen. The first thing you need to know is that the Tipi Builder works with blocks. And to add your first block, you can either click on this big button here, or you could actually import a complete layout from one of the demos. And to show you what a finished layout looks like, I'm going to go ahead and import the first demo layout. And there you have it, guys. All the blocks are now imported. And as we scroll, we can see that every block has its own blue outline. And if we hover over this square, we'll take a look at some of the first things we can play with. So let's start by cloning this block. And as you can see, one click and it's done. And then to delete it, we simply click here, and that's done. And you also have these arrow buttons to swap the position of the block with the one above or below. And you can also change the spacing around the blocks by simply dragging the blue sides, making them as big or small as you like. And you can do this to any of the sides. So it could be the top, the bottom, the right or the left. We can also quickly edit the block titles by simply clicking on them and just start typing. So I'll change this one to "Look at me, I'm a subtitle." And then we can use the teepee toolbar to do more things. So for example, we can make things bold, we could underline words, you can make things italic, you can change the color wherever you want. We can also easily create links. Enter your URL. I'll just enter something random. And we can also open a new tab if you'd like. Just click here and save. We can also change the font of the text. So let's just change it to something random. And we can also clean it all up by clicking on this eraser icon. And we can now do the same to the main block title, which currently has a link. So let's remove that. And let's change the text to say must reads. Now let's just leave that here for now. And let's move on to the Tipi Builder panel. To open the panel, you simply click on this button here. And this is it. So let's begin by looking at the interface. And let's start from the top left. So this button here takes you back to the dashboard. Next to that, this one shows you your current location in the builder. And on the top right, you can open up the help. And on the next row, we have our add block button. And next to that, we have a drop-down option, which allows us to change the mode. And I'll go through what that means later on in the video. And next to that, this button here opens the general options. And underneath these toolbars, we'll see an overview of all the blocks. And when you hover over a block, be it in the panel or on the right side preview, the relevant block on the other side will also be highlighted. So as I hover over these blocks, you can see how the relevant one is highlighted. And if you click on a block, you'll see that the relevant block on the right side scrolls into view. Now let's take a quick look at the bottom toolbar. So on the bottom left, we have a hide and show panel button. Then we have the undo, redo buttons. We then have a button to open the page in a new tab. And finally, we have the save button. And those are all the toolbars in the Tipi Builder. Now back to the blocks, and the next thing we'll look at is how easy it is to drag and drop. You simply grab a block and drop it anywhere you want. And on the panel, we also have access to the clone and delete options. You simply click on the 3 dots here. So why don't we clone this one and then remove it with the undo button. Now let's look at the individual block settings. To open the settings, you simply double click on a block like this. Now let's start from the top. And the first option we'll look at is the Builder Label option. Now this option here is to help you identify the block within the builder. Let me rename it quickly to show you what I mean. And this is the only place you'd see it. Now I'll just double click to jump back in. And the next option is the block title. Now this option allows you to remove the block title if you don't want one. And you can do the same with the subtitle. And the next option is the byline, which is this here. So you can turn it on or off on each block. Same thing with the excerpt. And if you do have them on, you can control how many words they show. And we can also set the source of the content. So currently it's set to the design category, but we can also make it show content from a tag. So why don't we select the modernism tag? And there you go. Or if you'd like to select specific posts to show, you can do that as well. So from the list, let's just pick some random ones. You can also quickly search for a post. So let's do that. I'll just start typing fish. And there you go. We have a result. It's so fast, isn't it? But let's set it back to the design category for now. And now let me show you the pagination option, which allows you to add some buttons so that users can load more content via Ajax. So currently we have it set to left and right buttons, these ones here. But you can also quickly remove them, or you can add the classic load more button if you prefer that. Now let's go back to the block overview, and why don't we just add a new block now? But before we do that, let's delete all the blocks so that we can create our own page from scratch. And to do that, we'd simply go to the general options, which is where we are now. And let's quickly take a look at the backup options while we're here. So let's open the backups tab, and you'll see that it's very simple. You simply click on the export button and you'll automatically download a file containing your layout, and you can then re-import it in the future. It's that simple. So now let's go delete the blocks. And there we go, it's completely deleted now. Now let's start by adding our first block. Let's add a grid first. So let's use a filter to find all the grids. And why don't we start by adding this one here. So the first thing we can try to do is move the block closer to the main menu. And to do that, we simply drag on the top spacing. So we want to leave it on 0. And by the way, if we scroll to the bottom of our panel, you'll find a padding option showing all our current values. And if I move here, you'll see that the value changes on the other side as well. And if you wanted something very precise, so for example, if you wanted 1, 2, 3 pixels, then that's when you'd set it manually, just like this. But let's leave it on 3 for now. And while we're here, let me show you another cool feature, which is the edge to edge option. And as you can see, you can make your blocks full screen width with just one click. And now let's move on to other options. Why don't we look at the quantity option? And as you'd expect, this one just adds more posts to your block. And you could also use the inputs to set your values as well, like this. And now let's give this block a label, seeing as we haven't done that already. And let's just call it my first block. And okay, that's probably enough for this one. Why don't we add another block now? So let's go back to the add new block section. And this time let's add this block. And the first thing we're going to do is remove the block title and subtitle. And let's give this block a label. So let's just call it portrait to keep it really simple. And now let's make it show some posts from the food category. And some blocks have exclusive options for them. So for instance, this one has an option that allows you to control the design and location of the meta. So you could make it to be invisible, and then on hover, it appears in the middle. Or you can also make it invisible, but that it then appears on the bottom when you hover over. Now let's add another block. And let's add one with small thumbnails. And let's remove the block title and subtitle for this one as well. Let's take a look at the order option now. And as you can see, you have multiple options to order your post by. You could do it by trending, random, and let's just set it to oldest for this example. And let's move the block higher up in the page. So let's go back to the overview now and simply drag and drop where you want it. And then double click to go back in. Now let's give it a label. And to make the block visually simple, let's disable the byline. And the last thing we'll do to this block is give it a top and bottom border. And the way we do that, we simply scroll to the bottom in the panel, and in the style options, you'll see a border option. We simply select the type of border we'd like. We can then set the width of the border and the color. By default, the border goes around the entire block. However, you can disable the outer border option here to make it line up with the contents. Now, why don't we explore a different type of block? So let's add a call to action block. And the first thing we need to do for this block is assign a background image. So let's just do that quickly. And I'll just select this first one here. And this is how the block starts. And the first thing we'll do is enter our main headline. So I'll just type my VR headline. And as you can see, our text is currently like a medium grey, but depending on the background image, we can of course adjust it to anything we want. So let's change it to white. And now let's enter the secondary title. Could be anything. So let's just write my clever secondary title goes here. And same as before, we can change the color. So let's change it to white. Now let's also add a pre-title. So I'll just start writing, well, actually let's make it uppercase to make it nicer. The future is here. And again, we'll make the text color white. And let's make it bold as well to make it stand out more. Now the main button, same thing, just click it and start typing. And we'll make it bold too. Now, if you prefer round buttons, you can click over here. And we can also quickly change the background color by clicking on this one. And if you have a specific color, you can enter it manually in the input below as well. But let's just set this yellow for now. You can also set the link to this button by highlighting the text and then clicking over here. Very easy. And you may have noticed that there's some options on the panel that we can use as well. So for example, this option here allows you to make the buttons bigger if you prefer. And above this, we find an option to add a secondary button, which we'll do. And this button has 3 design options to choose from. It can be square, round, or it could even be a video button as well, which is great for when you've got some relevant video content. And the way it works is you simply set your title and give it a link. I'll just quickly enter a fake YouTube URL. And you'll notice that there's a video URL option here, I'll quickly enable it, and now our video will open in a lovely smooth light box on the front end. Now moving on, let's make this block a edge to edge one. And let's give it a parallax effect as well. We simply enable the parallax option up here. And just like that, we now have a super smooth parallax animation running. Now let's set our label while we're here. And why don't we move the block higher up in the page? So we simply drag and drop it. And let's adjust the spacing of these blocks too. We'll leave it there. And let's add another block. Let's add a sidebar this time. And the main option in this block is to choose the widget area which you'd like the sidebar to use. Currently it's set to use the default one, but as you can see, we have a full list of all the available widget areas, and we can also create a unique one just for this location. But to keep it simple, let's just leave on the default one. Now, if we go back to the blocks overview, you'll see that this is the sidebar block that we've just added. And by default, this block comes inside a columns block, but these two blocks are completely independent and separate from each other. So for instance, you could actually grab the sidebar and move it into the wider column. Or if you wanted to, you could move the sidebar outside of the columns completely. But for this example, I don't think we want to do that, so I'll just put it back in. And now that we're talking about columns blocks, let's have a look at the options of this one. And the most important option here is the layout one. So let's play around a bit with that. You can make the columns equal width. Or if you wanted to have a narrow left column, you can simply click here. So if you wanted to have a left sidebar, you can simply flip it over. And if you'd like to have 3 columns, then you'll find there's a block for that too. I'll quickly add one now so that we can play around with it. But before we start playing around with the layouts, let's drag a block into the columns so that we can see what we're doing. I'll just drag this one. And actually, let's delete the columns of 2 as we'll focus on the columns of 3 for now. And now let's drag another block into it. Why don't we drag the grid block that we added earlier into the columns? And as we're hovering over the grid, we can see that there's some top spacing that we might want to remove. Now let's make the middle column be slightly wider. So let's jump back into the options and we simply click on this option here. Now let's add a few more blocks to the columns. So why don't we start by adding a thumbnail block. Let's quickly remove the title and subtitle, and to make it extra clean, the byline as well. And let's feature some specific posts. And we'll leave it there for now. Now let's go drag this thumbnail block into the left column. And when you do that, you'll notice that the Tipi Builder automatically changes the design of the thumbnail block to fit nicely into the narrow column. Now let's quickly add another block. And let's just add this one here. And quickly drag it underneath the grid block. And if we quickly go into the options again, we'll just go this way. And we turn off the excerpts and block title and subtitle. And make it show post from a category. And now why don't we make the grid above also use this category, as this way these two blocks will now combine to become a mini section for it. But now you'll see that we have a duplicate post problem. And the way to fix this is to simply go into the options of the second block and use the offset option to skip the first post. And there you go, no more duplicate posts between these two blocks. Now why don't we try and combine 2 other blocks, but in the left column this time. So let's keep the thumbnail block there and let's add something above it. So why don't we add a grid block, and let's add this one here. And now let's drag it above the thumbnail one. And let's also remove the top spacing. And let's change it to only show one post. and I'll do that by featuring only one post. Okay, that one's fine now. Now let's move on to the thumbnail block again. And let's make it more interesting by giving it a dark background. And let's adjust the spacing slightly as well. And let's remove this. And even though these were very quick examples, as you can see, you can quickly combine different blocks to create your own blocks and a highly unique layout. And the final feature I'm going to show you here is that the last block of a column can also be set to be sticky. And let me just adjust this spacing quickly. And as we scroll up and down, you can see that the block sticks. Now let's take a quick look at what we've got so far. Let's reduce this a little bit. And let's add a load more button. And I think we're good there. Now let me show you another Tipi Builder feature, and that is the global no duplicates option. I'm going to quickly remove some options so that we get loads of duplicates so you can see it in action. Okay, that's probably enough. And as you can see now, we have loads of duplicate posts on our page. And if we go to the general options, we'll find an option called no duplicates. We simply enable it, and just like magic, all our duplicates are completely gone. And if I disable the option again, they all reappear. So yes guys, it really is that simple. One click and it's done. Now to finish our page off, why don't we add an Instagram block to the end of the page? And all we have to do in this block is simply add our username, which in this case is Zeen theme. Let's enable the edge to edge option and increase the amount of photos. And finally, let's adjust the spacing to stick it to the footer. Now the final Tipi Builder feature that I'm going to show you in this video is the mobile mode that I mentioned earlier. And to activate it, we simply go to this menu here and we click on the mobile option. And what we have here is a real representation of what your page looks like on mobile devices. And what's even cooler in the Tipi Builder is that each individual block can be set to load or not load on mobile devices, and load or not load on desktops too. So in other words, you can create completely different layouts for your desktop and mobile users. So for example, you could create a super complex layout on desktop, but have a super simple layout for your mobile users. It's completely up to you and your site's needs. And to do this, you simply disable this option. And as you can see, our call to action block has disappeared and it won't load on mobile devices. And let's do the same to the thumbnail block. And as you can see, it's also disappeared from the mobile view. And if we go back to see the overview of the blocks, you'll see that these two blocks are now semi-transparent here. And this simply means that the blocks are disabled in the current Tipi Builder mode. But if we switch back to desktop mode, you'll see that they appear normally. Now let's turn off a block in desktop mode so that you can see that in action too. And let's do that on the portrait block. And now it's gone from desktop, but if we go back to the block's overview, you'll see that it is now semi-transparent here. But if we switch back to mobile mode, you'll see that it's still active and appearing normally. And so there you have it guys. I hope this video has given you a good understanding of the power, the ease and the speed of the Tipi Builder, because now you have all the knowledge necessary to use it like a pro. Thanks for watching guys. See ya!